Can I go now? All right. Yeah. Where's the lights? Okay. So how many have ever implemented a web service of any kind in their site or interacted with one on a remote site? Just so I get an idea for my own edification. Okay. So about half. All right. So this is obviously a talk about REST and that particular type of web service. Okay, how's this?
Great.
All right. So let's get started. So what is REST, and why would we want to do that as opposed to some other type of web service, or not using a web service at all? This is basically how you sell the boss on implementing a web service in your next web application or whatever it is that you're doing. It's blah 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 strategic alliances, increase customer value, leveraging things, and blah blah brand experience. Marketing speak, just copy some of it down and read it later. It'll sound convincing. So technical goals, the stuff we care about. So basically web services are just about getting different computers, remote systems to talk to each other. I mean, this has been going on for years, just basic TCP IP, Cobra, all the way up to just web page scraping to go to find a tab and do lots of things. And we're back. So there's been all kinds of different ways throughout the years to do this, but that's basically the fundamental goal. And as I've probably mentioned on more than one occasion, I'm kind of a lazy person. And in programming, I'm lucky because laziness is a virtue. I don't want to do any more work than I have to, which leads me to write less code and write code well the first time so I can be lazy later on when it comes to time to maintain it. So in order to get this web API stuff to work, I don't want to have to work any harder than I have to. And again, laziness, point number 2, I don't want to have to spend a lot of time having to maintain this and update stuff when changes are made to the application. I just want it all to work the first time and not have to come back to it. And making it safe, which we may or may not get to, this is basically, so with REST, everything is just kind of a resource out there on the web that you can talk to really easily. How do we make it secure so that, say, a scraper or a malicious person doesn't go and just delete all the records in the database? We'll try and touch on that, not making any promises. Okay, so SOAP, for our purposes, sort of represents the RPC style of web service development. XML RPC also sort of falls under the umbrella of RPC, as do some other styles, but we're going to focus on SOAP because it is particularly evil. And here's why. So SOAP is probably the only computer acronym that I'm familiar with where none of the letters that make it up actually have anything to do with what it is. It's not simple. It doesn't actually involve objects. It involves messages. Access, okay, it lets you access stuff in a general sense. Protocol, no, because it really re-implements a bunch of existing protocols that it doesn't have to. So SOAP is bad. Again, it redefines the basic elements of HTTP. Instead of using HTTP as it was designed, everything gets sent as a post request, and it uses custom data formats that are embedded into giant XML structures. It doesn't use things like accept headers and accept language. So none of that stuff that's already built into this HTTP stack factors into REST, or factors into SOAP rather at all. It redoes everything in some way, which creates a lot of extra work for me. I don't like extra work. It uses a single service endpoint, and this is, again, common to all RPC services. All the requests, whatever, regardless of what you're doing or what method you're calling, are getting funneled through this single endpoint dispatch mechanism that has to parse gigantic XML structures at the beginning of each request, which is slow. So, hence that.
Oh no, sorry, I'm not.
Again,
Okay, thanks.
that. So here's an example. Well, I'll say it's a hypothetical example SOAP request because in practice, no SOAP request is ever actually this short. So you can see up at the top here, this is where all the requests funnel through like one single URL, and everything goes over post, which is not REST friendly. And the actual method that we're calling and the parameters that we're passing in are embedded inside this gigantic, well, ours is small, but really it's going to feel like that. XML structure that you have to parse through to figure out what code it is you actually want to execute. So that's why SOAP and RPC services are sort of bad way of approaching web services. So REST, why is REST good? Well, it maps cleanly to CRUD. In Cake, we like CRUD very much. CRUD is in scaffold. CRUD is the basic operations of a database. Everything, all Cake's conventions in terms of reading and writing records map cleanly to CRUD. So REST maps cleanly to Cake. And it uses existing HTTP standards. HTTP has methods other than POST, like GET, PUT, and DELETE, which work with REST to accomplish whatever task it is you're trying to do. And the method that you're calling is implicit in the HTTP method that you're using. So there's no redefinition. And it's a resource base. I'll illustrate what this means a little bit later, but the resource that you're, instead of calling methods explicitly, you're accessing the resources through a very constrained set of methods. And that's part of what makes REST so easy is you're not redefining different methods for each application. You have a specific set of methods that you can perform on different resources. And the resource that you're accessing is in the URL itself. So, and all request details are right in the header. So, which means it's easy to load balance. You don't need deep packet inspection in your firewalls to be able to figure out what's going on with the request. So this is good. So here is an example, like just a couple simple example REST requests. Notice how short they are. 2 lines. I mean, come on. So the REST request that was happening before would be the equivalent of this. We're looking up the stock symbol. And these are kind of 2 different ways. This is actually a common REST pattern to filter a set of results. So stocks.xml would be sort of the index page of all the stocks, and then you're filtering a symbol. Whereas the second one here is just accessing a particular symbol. This would be the equivalent of the view action. And here's the other basic set of REST requests that you can make. You can post to an index page to create a new record. You can and post the data here. You notice this very simple constrained XML structure. And you would put to a particular stock symbol to update it with, say, new value. And then you would call delete on a particular resource to delete it, obviously. So, how do we do this stuff in practice in Cake? All it takes is 3 simple steps to serve and or to allow your application to be interacted with via REST style. So we need to tell Cake how to handle, take dot whatever at the end of the URL and say, okay, that's a different type of resource representation. How are we going to handle that? Well, that's not specifically REST. It factors into handling different types of resources. And for example, we saw back here, this is all XML. Well, what if we wanted to post JSON some other format instead. You need to tell Cake to how to differentiate based on those types. So, second one would be to set up a template. MVC is awesome, especially for this, because if I want to add different view types to a controller, let's say I'm serving an index page, and we go back to our stocks example, just a list of tickers. I can output that in any format I want just by creating a new view template. Using the same controller data, I don't have to write a new action. What I see a lot of out there in people's examples of how to do RSS feeds is they'll create a new feed action in your host controller, and you don't need to do that. You can just add an RSS template to your index page, and it just works. And finally, step 3. Oh, okay, never mind. So it's really that simple. So step 1, this is how we do step 1 in practice. You just add this line to your routes.php configuration file. That tells Cake to parse any file extension it happens to find in the URL. Whereas this, you can tell it only recognize these types and just ignore everything else. Is this making sense to everybody so far? Any questions? Yes?
Is this 1.2 specific?
This is all 1.2 specific, yeah. Everybody should update to 1.2. If for no other reason than I'm lazy and I'm sick of having to maintain 1.1. And then I always just put this in app controller, though you can put it in whatever controller you want. Just add the request handler. That's what actually detects these extensions at the controller level and sets up all your view paths to make your different resource types just work automatically. And then step 2 is to actually create the view templates. So normally what you would do is you would say view/widget/index.php without this XML part. But when you're serving different resource types, this folder basically maps to whatever extension you're serving. So when you're serving XML, for example, you just add an XML folder right in your folder for your controller, or folder for your views for your controller, and then these, again, the views map straight to the actions in the same way that your normal views do.
If your views not voice,
Yes. And within the errors folder, this same folder structure should work also. So that you can actually generate like XML errors. So then this, say you have a widgets controller, you would just wrap it with the open and closing widgets tag, so it's structured properly towards the XML spec, which specifies that there can only be one XML document. And then this just takes whatever model or object structure you throw at it and serializes it as XML. It's got a couple different output formats we saw before back here. So this format, it actually is using attributes for properties. You can also tell Cake to serialize that so that the stock would be an opening and closing tag, and then there would be a symbol tag and a value tag for each one of the properties. So we can take a look at that. So yeah, it just automatically serializes all your data. And then for view, for an individual record view, again, all you need is just telling the XML helper to serialize your data. And now you'll notice in step 1, I didn't put anything in the controller about adding another helper. So where does XML helper come from? What the request handler does in setting up your view is it will look to see if there are any helpers matching the file extension that came up here. And if there are any helpers in your application, whether in your local application, your local helpers, or in the core, it'll add that to your view automatically. And then serving JSON, basically the same thing. In the JavaScript helper, there's an object method that will actually take object and data structures and output them to valid JSON. So index and view are basically both the same, whatever set of records you're returning from your controller, you're just outputting this JSON. It just works. So, any questions on this so far? Yeah.
To determine whether it's JSON or XML,
right.
It's purely the extension. You don't need prefix anymore. It's really, well, I think it was at 1.1.
Yeah. We had this thing in 1.1, which don't tell anybody I said this, but I thought it was kind of dumb at the beginning. So we got rid of that and implemented this. There have been a lot of questions about whether we're still influenced by Rails or not. Not really in the day-to-day stuff, but this is actually an idea that I stole from them, the whole file extension thing, because it was just so easy and it just worked. So I thought, hey, we can steal that and use it for our stuff. Part of the problem, and well, the reason why this is so difficult is because for most browsers, they don't actually send the accept type header that indicates what they actually want. And Firefox, for example, sounds like an application X HTML or HTML hyphen XML or something crazy like that, to indicating that it wants back strict XHTML as its default type. Well, if you try and serve that, Internet Explorer gets upset as usual and will try and fight you on it. So, and there's also a problem with a lot of RSS readers, which actually will indicate in the header that they want HTML, which is utterly nonsensical. They just weren't designed according to the spec. So this extension idea is explicit and it solves all those problems. So that's how it works. That basically answer your question.
Yeah.
So adding the actual REST routing to get the what you saw previously to work. What we do is there's a map resources method in the controller, or in the router, which you pass the name of the controller to, and you see that there. And basically what that does is it generates 5 new routes for that controller, so that when you go, and you can actually ignore the extensions because they're not part of the actual map resources method. The extension could be, in this example, the extension could be not there, or it could be something other than XML. But basically a get to the controller name. I mean, really the same as a normal HTTP request. The browser would map to the index, but then controller name /ID maps to the view, and then post to the controller name maps to the add method, and it'll have whatever data you post to it. A foot to an ID will update the record with edit and delete, obviously. So, is that clear? Looks pretty clear. On to the actual examples and making stuff work. So the last time I gave this talk, was at CakePHP last year, and the example I came up with was really stupid and contrived, and I didn't like it. So a couple of weeks ago, in preparation for this talk, I was thinking, what could I do as an example of something real? It's been a while since I've actually used this in an application I'm having it current, and I want something that's simple and just demonstrates the basic precepts of what I'm trying to present. And I thought, what if I wrote a package server for Cake? So, in a couple of weeks, we are going to launch plugins.CakePHP, which will allow you to package and download plugins that you create. So now that you can load pretty much any type of file, components, helper, behavior files, views, what have you, from a plugin. You can basically write a full-fledged application extension that uses any combination of those files and just drop it in your plugins folder and it just works. So it's now become a great mechanism for actually distributing encapsulated components of stuff. So why not make package server UI? So that's basically what I did. It's both a REST client and a REST server. The client is actually a console script that you run. You just type in cake package install. And it installs whatever it is. And then you can type cake package upload whatever plugin you have that you've written. And it will prompt you for a few details and it actually packages up that plugin and uploads it to the server. So this would be much simpler than everything we've kind of had in the past, where whether it be Cakeboard, where you have to go check stuff out from SQL, deal with all that, or Bakery, dear God, when you start it, you have to copy and paste text into files manually. It's ridiculous. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that. So
update.
What's that?
You update your stuff when you make an update to your helper or whatever. You have to go back in and paste and then get it.
Yes, yeah, I know, and it's like, so if there's a change to the code made in the bakery, you have no way of knowing. So this will hopefully solve all those problems, and again, we're just starting off really simple to update a package that you previously uploaded. You just type upload again and do it in a new version. Currently there's no notification system for updates or anything, but that would be pretty easy to add. Maybe we'll do it today. Any questions so far? Yeah.
The only question I have is how you're specifying the request action if, for instance, put delete on the same URL set that you through JavaScript.
Oh, that actually happens through. Okay. So this is actually on the left. That's actually the HTTP header that the request is being sent with. So the router. Oh, this is probably something I should touch on. The reason this stuff works is the router has actually been imbued with the ability to read HTTP headers. So you can now do custom routes based on anything that starts with an HTTP underscore in the server variables, or the request URLs. You can actually do custom URLs for subdomains. You can do custom URLs based on content type, or custom URLs based on HTTP request method, which is how this works. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, hopefully the package server will solve all those code distribution problems and provide a cool mechanism for demonstrating this REST stuff. Yes?
Quick question. What about the validation that you have normally when you use just straight HTML? Would you have some sort of functionality for that? I mean, the way that it just works so nice and it brings you back to the page with the highlighted errors for you to approve?
Currently, there's no, basically what I started to do in this particular application is just take like the validation properties or the validation errors property that gets kicked back from the view, just iterate over it and display it as XML. Or alternatively, I could actually probably dump it to that XML serialized helper method. Well, I haven't tried that yet. I'd have to double check the actual XML structure and make sure it works. So currently no validation support, but that's definitely something we'll look into. Okay, so demo tab. Okay, so can everybody see this? I want to start with the client here, just so you can get an idea of how we're interacting with this.
One more bigger.
What's that?
One font size bigger if you can, it'd be perfectly clear.
Good? Alright. So, is Felix in the house right now?
No.
Oh,
He's back.
It's too bad. Because he actually wrote this HTTP socket class, which is what enables all this client REST stuff to happen. And it's an awesome class. It just does everything for you. He implemented SSLs. He basically re-implemented curl in PHP. So if you happen to not have curl installed on your server, all this stuff still just works and works brilliantly. Hopefully it works brilliantly. So we're in the initialize method of the shell script. Here, let's actually see the working example. So here we're going to go cake package all, and this is going to query the package server and just return all the packages with that's right on the screen. So querying all packages, and then there's only one installed right now. The blog package is version 0.1, and there's the timestamp and all that stuff. So pretty basic. Let's take a look at how that's happening. So down here in the all method of the shell script, we'll get into what this does in a second. Actually, let's just do it. So you go all and then provide it with any other parameter. It basically does a search for packages matching something like that. So if I do BLO, it's going to give me back the same thing, but if I say it's not going to know what I'm talking about. No matching packages. So that's what this bit does up here. It just checks for any extra input after the command and adds it to a query string. So what this is doing is, so we're going socket get, which calls the get method. So the HTTP socket class actually has one method per HTTP request type that we're using. So you can call get, you can call post, put, delete, and it all just maps exactly to what we're going to be doing for the rest of the requests and how we're going to handle it. So we're querying the plugins.xml, it's the index page, and then there's a search, or just appending the q equals whatever the search string is. And then this is just checking that, and then so we're creating the XML structure from whatever was returned there. And we're just checking here that the valid XML was returned, and we know what we're doing with it. So we can just iterate over the packages and then format the output. So then in view, so we've got log package. So if we go cake package view resolve, it gives us the package details. Again, just the same type of request. Also using get. But if I try a package that doesn't exist, give me an error. We'll see how that error is handled in a second. So again, it's just plugin / whatever the plugin name is, .xml. And then we come take a look at the package. If there was an error like we saw before, this view just outputs the an error tag with the message. Package script says, okay, if there's an error here, then just output the error and just continue. Otherwise, it checks for the package plugin or the package tag, the plugin tag, and then the current tag, which represents the current version of whatever the package is. And then again, this is all just display formatting set. So then we move on to upload. Does everybody already get what's going on so far back and forth with the server? And any questions on that? I can go into that one later so you can see actually step by step what's going on with some of that stuff and how it's handled and how you would handle it in your own applications. So then with upload, I'm actually going to get rid of this package here. I'm going to get rid of the blog package so you can see kind of how this goes. So if I go cake package, I got it. So we're back to 0. So now, within my application, I've got 2 plugins here. I want to package up this blog one for upload. So I'm going to go cake package upload blog. Actually, do blog one. Oh, blog one does not exist. Okay, so I did handle that error. Good for me. I'm not that lazy. So So even though I deleted this record, for some reason it still has. Figure out what's going on. Alright, okay, let's try it one more time. There appears to be an error. So I'm checking this package exists method to see if the package does in fact exist. And it's possible that if XML changed, then I screwed up. So I'm going to echo results in that. Oh no! Mr. Bill. Okay, so I'm getting back to see if we can figure out why that's happening. Alright, let's try that one more time. Okay, there we go. So it's going to prompt us for some details about our new package we're uploading. Again, it's a blog. I'm the author. And 1.2 beta. We're just going to implement our own sheets. Oh, that's not helpful. So clearly, I was in the middle of debugging this package server when all this stuff came up. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do. First of all, debugging the crap in models, so that's not helpful. And so we're in this add action, and what we want to do is either the save worked, in which case we want to return the XML from the packages that created, or there were errors. And so again, for the validation stuff, this is basically what is happening. We're just returning the validation. So go over here to the XML add. No wonder. Clearly, I have not finished coding this method or this script. So you want to say is set results. Output XML. Otherwise, I'm just going to get and the user can just deal with that. create a package format for purposes of demonstration. It just G-zips the data and shoves everything into one file. So any questions so far on anything that's taking place? It's all somewhat confusing, I know. All right, well, good. That must mean I'm a really good teacher.
Or computers.
Or that.
No one can hear you.
Am I still speaking too quietly?
Little.
All right. I'll work on that. So there's our ad view, and let's just try that again, just so we can make sure. Oh, it already exists. Delete all that. Oh, there was. So clearly I did something wrong again, but
This is where we fix it and send it back to you.
yeah. Or better yet, write me a unit test so I can fix my code.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to fix my code for me, sure, but I'll probably just tell you it's wrong. Sorry. So, clearly we can see that it works. Let's take a look at some of the points. Actually, if you guys want, I had this kind of wild idea this morning. So, we're kicking back XML in this application from record data.
Louder.
Louder? Okay. So, we're taking this record data and kicking it back as XML. Well, the model class, it actually understands XML objects. Like if you pass it an XML object and tell it to save it, it knows what to do. So, what if we got two Cake applications to talk to each other, like just completely seamlessly? Didn't even occur to me until this morning. So I was like, hey, wouldn't that be a cool idea? Since I have a little bit of time left. What, 12:15, right?
12:30.
12. Oh, great. Got all kinds of time. So let's try that. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yay. It's just software, people. Relax. All right. So we're gonna drop out here and create a new application. Project. Looks good. Let's do it. Okay. All right. So in theory, we've got a new application. All right. So hey, Garrett, you wanna film me?
Sure.
Thanks. Okay. So we've got this. We've got this Cake plugins database, which just has our plugins and versions tables, and then we've got this other database over here, which is just a mirror of it. Because, right, even though this is totally redundant, all I'm doing is proving the proof of concept in the plumbing. So what you do, with the controllers and manipulating the data when you send it out is obviously what's going to make sense for you. So right now we're just proving that it works. So here's our original application, and let's go ahead and now we see who's really in charge. Routes. Start by getting rid of all this crap. Oh, okay, so we want to say router parse extension. Those two Okay. So, and then we'll set up our database. And we're going to connect to the mirror database. Yeah. So in theory, I load up my new REST application. Awesome. Oh, not awesome. Awesome. For real this time. Alright, so let's go ahead and bake our model really quickly. Wow, it worked. When you're up here doing this stuff, you don't always expect it to actually work the first time. So if I get a little excited, that's why. Alright, so we've got our plugin model. We want to say our plugins for what? Cake. Awesome. Alright, so let's say this is let's just say it's a mirror of the repository. And we just want to do an update of a particular record. So when we ping this URL with the package name, we want this server to go call out to the other server, grab the record, and save it. So let's try it. Some classes for this. App core, XML, and HTTP socket. Doing our legwork. So just to verify that this works, we're going to go debug. We're going to go this socket equals new HTTP socket, and we'll give it the server name that we're going to connect to, which is just my local virtual host. And then we're going to make sure that we can actually get the record. We're going to go this socket, get plugins / blog .xml. So if I go plugins / update, and let's make sure this log still exists in the other database. It does. So if I go update / blog, it should give me back some XML, and so it does. Awesome. What we have to go back and do now. No, we don't. I thought this other crap was being generated from that remote application, but it's not. So we're safe. So we're getting back valid XML. Let's verify that by saying new XML, and I'm just going to grab all the output from the socket call and create a new XML object here. pass this onto the model, it should know what to do with it. So if we go this, plug in, save, crazy nested method call. So if this works, yay. If not, so let's see what happens here. And it worked. Yay. Let's make sure. So we're switching over to the other database, and lo and behold, we have a blog record that mirrors the other one. So does everybody get how all that happened? Great. None of you are confused? Well, that requires a Boolean response. Come on.
The same is actually recognizing the XML and saving that.
Right. So it actually recognizes XML objects. Let's take a look at this again. We go. Let's just take a look at this next construction. So this is the gigantic XML object structure that this thing parses out into. So it takes this document object and it says, okay, I'm expecting one root node in this thing. And here it is in the plugin. So basically all it does is takes that plugin and grabs the attributes and those are the fields. And so it's as simple as that. Also, how many are familiar with the set object and the map method that is in that for mapping arrays to objects? The model can also understand that. So any type of data you want to serialize, if you can get it into that standard object format that the model can read, whether it's XML or a set object, you can just pass it to the model and it'll just save it. So if you can do that with JSON data, you can do anything. And actually, I didn't even go into this before, but that's how the saving XML when you post it. Does everybody remember that slide where we're posting raw XML data? What happens when you include the request handler is it actually checks the input to see if it's of XML type, and it actually serializes any posted XML data and assigns it to the this data property. So when you're writing your controller code, normally the post data will come in from a form and populate this data and pass it on to the model. Well, with XML it works exactly the same. As long as you have the request handler loaded up, it serializes, or it takes the XML that's being posted, turns it into an XML object that we're doing here, and assigns it to this data so that you can pass it on to the model in the exact same way. So that goes back to the whole lack of redundancy in web services. You can write any controller, or any component rather, for any format that you want. So if you want to decode JSON data, there's a native method in PHP 5.2 that do that. So you could write a component wrapper for that and take that data and unserialize it to an array, an object, whatever you want. As long as it's in this standard model format, the component can just take that data and automatically refigure it and stick it in this data property of the controller, so that you can take data in from any of these other formats, just like you're outputting. So it's all really simple. Yes.
Can you say related models with this? So you return the version object along with the
You can with the new save all method of the model. Actually, I haven't tried with this. I don't know.
Would it work be pointed as at the index and return multiple plugins?
Yeah. So model save all, which is largely undocumented to this point, will either save a single record and all of its associated records, whether it's pretty much any association, hasn't belonged to many, well, obviously already handled within a regular save. So it'll handle has one belongs to, and then for has many, it actually forks out in the save all method the associated model, which takes a set of records. So that's the other thing that save all will do, is take a set of single records with no associations and save those. And if you're using a database that supports transactions, all that stuff will be handled in a single transaction. And locally, I actually have a bunch of changes to save all to get it to support like validating all at once up front. So let's say you want validation, you can tell it to do a first pass of validation to get all the errors at once. And it's a little slower, but if you're doing an interface where you want that to happen, you validate first. You go run all the validations first and return all the errors at once. But yeah, we tried. So we've got our plugin, and then that's got the current. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back over to the main plugins application and steal So we're going to say it has one current so that it knows what to do. Okay, so that should theoretically work. Find out if it works in practice. Ready? Not making any promises. All right, so let's clear out the crap in our mirror database and see what happens. Ooh, bad, yeah. Yeah, that's not good at all. All right, let's work on the core. Let's say 1426. First argument. Okay. There's the rub. Save all does not handle XML, it only handles array. So I guess you could, huh? Alright, so what the heck did I do in save? Oh, it's handled in set, no wonder. Alright. Do you really want me to do this now? Oh yeah, we can definitely cover security. All right. So since Felix is in that other room over there, I can't actually ask him if he can so yeah, I don't know if he actually implemented the HTTP auth handling in the HTTP socket class.
Yes,
He did?
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, well, then you get up here. All right, so what we're going to do is add. I'm talking about your class.
Oh God, this is good.
I hope not. 'Cause otherwise, I'm going to look bad.
Okay.
So, on the, and I'm in the wrong application. So I'm switching over to the server application, add the security components to the plugins controller. We're talking about securing REST web services. So hopefully the HTTP socket handles authentication properly. Oh, there's Garrett. Are you going to help me up here?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice of you. Okay, so we're going to go security, require login. And I totally don't remember the API, so we're going to go CakePHP components security. Did you move it?
Oh, compound.
I was trying out the API and there were methods missing in the console script.
Oh yeah. Garrett wrote that.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go. You're gonna grab the source. Name on source. So we're going to require login for all actions. We're going to do just some simple admin password. Yeah. Well, oh, the users? Yeah. Yeah, you can also pass it in all in one. So you can actually load this from like a model, for example. You have a set of usernames and passwords. But the thing with digest or basic authentication is you have to have all the usernames and passwords available up front. So that's the only way you can do the lookup. So you set that up in your before filter. Now, in theory, when plugins slash it's not helpful in the least. Aha. Oh, is that what you meant? Okay, sorry. Admin password. Let's double check my syntax here. Okay, so instead with security login options users. We're going to pass the users in explicitly and create a guide that it works this time. And I'll make sure the type is basic authentication instead of digest otherwise. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I forgot the new default for authentication is digest because it's more secure. I'll be talking more about that later. So we've got our HTTP basic authentication up and working. So from our client application, we're going to say this out here. Equals what's the action?
What are you trying to do?
Trying to add the username and password. Oh, okay.
When you initialize it, it has an array. It's the first parameter, and then the first key is URI. Then set HTTP copy. Yeah.
And then HTTP login.
Should be a UTH. And then it should be using, I think, user and password.
Was it user colon password?
Can you actually open HTTP stuff too?
Sure. Oh, thanks.
As a basic should be set by
Distributed programming.
Thanks, Jerry.
So we're going to go awesome. Basic. Password is password. So now, regardless of whether you're using basic or digest authentication, well, you should always be using digest authentication. But this is just you should be sending it over SSL ideally, because even digest is only MD5, and MD5 is breakable. So if you actually want your web service to be secure, all transactions over SSL. So make sure we're good. Okay. So the request. Oh, the host reset to localhost. Supposed to happen.
Do you have the latest update version?
Okay.
If not, just put it in the
I guess we don't have internet. Okay. Well, thank you.
No, it's just okay.
So, try that one more time. Yeah, nothing. So it's all correct. Slash O. Yeah, so I'm getting those all back to that. But okay, so user and passwords are missing. So I can just pass that in the, is that just the first parameter?
Should all be one radius. No, just looks right.
So I can go like,
No. Open up HTTP sockets.
now we're going to work on the core.
Yeah.
Okay.
Upgrade like the configuration, that's the top of the Okay, since it's request, URI request AUTH. We need to add one key in the initial delegation.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just grab both of the statements inside read and not read.
Okay. So we go. Raise.
Might make it possible to use the directly.
Yeah. So we go. Request.
That's probably all the right to do that. Oh, yeah. Change it up there.
Still nothing. Now this is time to roll up an HTTP debugger.
We got it, Tony.
So yeah, clearly Felix and I have some work to do. But you get the idea. So that'll be work this week, I promise. Any other questions so far? You all ready to go out and implement web services for your applications and not do separate feed actions anymore for RSS? Yes. One in the back.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I would like to say that I'm waiting a lot the package manager component because it would be a great feature for CakePHP.
Yes.
It's such as to download code with copy and paste to earlier.
Oh yeah. No, believe me, I completely agree. So hopefully this will solve everybody's code sharing problem. And yeah, it should just be really easy to just install packages and you mentioned that your bakery articles, what have you, and just say, yeah, just type in cake package install, whatever the package name is.
I'm sure it will benefit to both developers that create plugins because it will be easier for people to install the plugins and also for people who need the plugins. It will benefit everybody.
Right.
By the way.
Right, exactly. Easier to share, easier to get shared stuff.
Unfortunately, I quite disagree with the first slide of your presentation. It's a bit... I'm using soap.
Well, I'm sorry to
This
hear
is a problem. And I totally agree you can use REST if you want. There is no problem with it. But you can't tell a bad reason about soap. It's misinformation. You can't tell everything like this. For example, soap, the basic point with soap is that soap is a message protocol independent layer. So you can use it over HTTP, over SMTP, over GMS, over FTP. It doesn't matter. So when you're saying that SOAP duplicates HTTP headers, of course it's gold. So you can say it's not a good reason. Of course it duplicates because it was meant to be like this.
Well, my point is that's great that it's meant to be like that, but 95% of the time we're going to be dealing with HTTP. We don't have to worry about these other services. So for us in our general workflow, SOAP is useless. And I was trying to explain this to Jeff yesterday, and he finally got it. The fact that you've got WSDL and all this information with which you can introspect SOAP services, that stuff is great, and it helps you as a developer interact with those services, but as far as actually seamlessly switching between different servers and things like that, when you go from one service to another, you don't know the methods. You don't instantly know the methods that service is exposing. You have to go and look and figure it out. Whereas with REST, you have a constrained set of methods that you can point at any resource and automatically just start doing the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my argument against SOAP, and it's great that you can use it over other protocols, but for HTTP, I think it's kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah, I think the idea of using REST is a good idea, but the argument is that you can't REST. Sorry.
No, if you have an argument against REST, please, by all means, hit me.
No, it's.
I think you're saying you don't bash SOAP.
Yes,
you can use REST for your area.
There is no need. There is no need to compete against SOAP. They provide different features. So when you can say what SOAP is not very adapted for us, this is a good point. I can understand, but you can't say SOAP is too bad for this.
Well, kind of the reason that I'm compelled to argue against it is that corporations and sort of, the big people with the money, they're sort of imposing this SOAP stack on me. I have to interact with it. I don't want to.
But when you get an error, for example, you're forced to use error message, SOAP as a SOAP fault, for example. If you want to implement reliability, transactionality, security, policy, I don't know, conversation, SOAP has built-in mechanism for this, because SOAP differentiates the header from the content of the message.
So SOAP differentiates, what was that?
The header layer from the body layer. In the message, you've got two elements, one header and one body.
Yeah.
And it's so you are placing in your header plenty of control data that you can't put in HTTP header. So when you want to deal with reliability, security, or things like this, you will be forced in REST to put this information in your HTTP content.
Well, okay, as far as reliability, HTTP is pretty reliable. Like, for the number of packets that actually gets dropped going when a message goes across the network, it's amazing that it still gets there and gets there in one piece. So what REST is doing is it's not saying let's not be reliable at all. It's saying let's take that reliability and put the responsibility for that in another part of the stack that already handles it really well.
For example, it's reliability at message level. We don't care about protocol. Remember that your application is using messages. So when you say it's reliability because HTTP is reliable, I would say that you have no clue that your message will arrive at the same. The first message you send is the first message you receive. And
are you talking about multiple asynchronous messages?
I'll take another example.
Okay.
For security. Security, you have plenty of mechanisms to protect your message, because just saying that you will transfer all your security to HTTPS is very short response.
What's that?
It's a small answer, I guess, because you can't use REST services over HTTP. I think you agree with this. If you need some protection, you have to do HTTPS.
Right.
It's impossible to use it. Okay. So you are forced to use HTTPS. With SOAP, you don't have, because you can do encryption at message level. You will protect some part of your code, and privacy is protected on the message layer and not on the transport layer. So you're not forced to use HTTPS.
Well, what you're saying is, let me see if I can explain this correctly. So any website you've ever done, for example, all your authentication, all your password security, everything, that's all already handled within your application. This is not new stuff. So transferring passwords, you always want to do that over HTTPS anyway. So interacting with this stuff is just like interacting with any other web application. It's all been done before, and that's that old reliable stuff that we're building on. So my argument is, why reinvent the wheel?
Because it generates new mechanisms. Communication from one application to another is a new way to work. And if you can do it differently, because you have new features to use, you don't have to do always things the same way. An application is not a user.
Right, an application is a user, so.
HTTPS is for end-to-end message security.
Mhm.
The message can jump from one node to another. It's not. So maybe I can talk to you about this.
Yeah,
after.
we can talk about it later on, but the point is just to rely on existing standards and existing ways of doing things, because they still map pretty well to what we're doing, because it's still just HTTP requests and responses going back and forth across the wire. Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
thanks,
actually,
guys.
I think it's the following. Once the authorization header should have basic capitalized, and we had it small.
Sure, more than
Yeah. Like all we had to do is changing basic from lowercase.
Well, how about them apples?
Yeah, I think that should be. Yeah, I think your cake already might.
Well, how do you like that? Well, it's all right. We'll just fix it in the HTTP socket class to make sure basic is capitalized.
Yeah. What do you think?
Open source, man. Awesome. All right, and yeah, I guess that's time, huh?
Do you provide any XML schema definition for your response, or?
I did not actually.
Because our people are supposed to know what schema definition you're going to use in your response.
I mean, I can do a DTD for this.
DTD, whatever, I don't care. But if people want to use your contract, the web service, they need to know what input and what output they would expect.
But if they use Cake, they don't. It's handled automatically.
Unfortunately, some people use Java, some people use
Some
people use Ruby on Rails, so you're stuck.
Right, I could do a DTD for this and send it, in XML. But basically there are two different formats you can do in Cake automatically. I mean, you can always do your own manually in your own template. But it's just how you see it here, where things show up as attributes, or how the model properties show up as tags within the plugin property, and then the plugin property would be empty. So depending on what type of client applications you're interacting with, output tracks.
So you will be able to generate a
Right.
Cake WSDL file.
What's that?
A Cake